Friends, I'm actually going to make you guys do some work to start with. I want you in groups of 2 or 3, so kind of where you're sitting, not excluding others around you, to talk to each other. And I want you to discern, to think together about what's the top question that you have, having heard that reading. And then secondly, what challenges you most about that reading? Okay, 2 questions. What's your most urgent question do you have after hearing that reading? And what challenges you most? Okay, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes to talk in 2s and 3s. Try not to miss anybody out. Try to include the younger people around you. And then we'll come around and see what responses we have. Okay. So I'm going to come around and just get anybody who's willing to tell me what's your most burning question, having heard this, and what challenges you most. Either of those questions, either of those things you can talk to me about, okay? Who'd like to start? Who'd be willing to start? Thank you very much. There's a secondary school teacher amongst us.
We said the thing that challenges us the most is the reminder that everything that you work for and might grow attached to was never yours in the first place or isn't forever.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really challenging, isn't it? That sense that none of it is ours. Let's go around here. I should get a runner, really, shouldn't I, after all this time?
Right. We discussed that the Lord recommended Job. My question is the Lord still recommending us today? And we will pass or fail?
Okay. Good question. We'll see if we get to answering it. Anybody else willing to talk to us? Anybody in here? Anybody along here? Oh, Dot and Steve. Just want to honour Dot and Steve, founder members of this church community.
I didn't hear the last question. There was too much noise. So it might be the same. What's Satan doing there? Why is there a conversation? And why does it seem as though it's a regular thing?
Okay, what's all this about Satan then? And what on earth is he doing in the presence of God? Okay, good question. We'll see if we get to answering it. Anybody down this end? Anybody else? Anybody over here? Any burning questions? Anything that challenges you over this side? He's got something, she's got something. She's got something. Hey, I'm told it's your birthday, by the way.
Saying, why did God allow Satan to test Job?
Okay, why did God allow Satan to test him? It's a good question. Okay, we'll come back and talk about that in a bit. Here's a question here.
It's just a reminder that we live in the present, that God gives and God takes away.
Okay, quite a challenge. Anybody over here willing to talk to me? Any kind of new thoughts or challenges or questions that you had? Oh, one here. Okay.
Bad things happen to righteous people.
Amen. Bad things happen to righteous people, which in a sense is the summary of 48 chapters of Job. Okay. Let's see if in what I say I can't to answer any of those questions. I think, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Chelsea and Kyron. You have a beautiful daughter. And I'm delighted that your shared faith in God means that you wanted to have Aria baptized, and you have now done that. And what a strong choice of godparents too. Godparents, as ever, your role is to pray for, to support, to be, if you like, to be the one that when there's a major argument at home, that Aria rings up and says, I want to talk. Can we go out? Can we just work out how this might work? Now, I wonder if, as parents, how much you've considered the prospect of saying sorry to God for the sins of your children. I know at this age it's hard to imagine that Araya might do anything wrong, but she's not going to smile and wave, eat and sleep forever. All children, as we know, have a will of their own and sometimes choose actions which come with, shall we say, bad consequences, as most of us know from our own lives. So one of the best gifts as parents, Chelsea and Karen, one of the best gifts you can give to Araya is to pray for her and ideally with her every day. And that's effectively what Job did, didn't he? He prayed for his children, especially after days when he knew that they might be tempted to sin. those feast days, when of course we all know what happens when we feast and we drink and we let our guard down, and our normal self-control is different. But I wonder whether the epitaph, as it were, the description of Job, might be something we could all aspire to. We're told in verse 1 that Job was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. So just try that out with your own name for me, will you? So start with your own name and then go on and say out loud, my name was blameless and upright. Here we go. Was blameless and upright. Did you get that? Did you say your own name? Tony? Kana? Whatever? Yeah? Job was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He or she feared God and shunned evil. How does that feel on your lips, friends? If you manage to say that out loud. Does that feel like that's true for you? That you're blameless and upright, that you feared God, respected God, if you like, and shunned evil. Because I want to suggest to you that most children observe the adults around them and quickly decide if yours is a way of life to imitate or to avoid. So the challenge is to live life to be a good example to those around us. Now, I realize in picking this passage, it's not your normal upbeat passage that you might expect at a baptism. It's not about new life. It's not about that quote of Jesus saying, let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. But in many ways, we enable the little children around us to come to Jesus by our actions and our attitudes. And Job is a great example to us even now. But notice how he went from multi-millionaire, 7,000 sheep and this, that, and the other, 3,000 camels, or was it the other way around, to pauper, to bankrupt pauper in one day, and Job worshipped. He went from duly proud yet worried dad to grieving over the death of all his children, and Job worshipped. He went, and it was such huge change all in one day. As one messenger was talking, so the next one arrived, calamity after calamity reported, and at the end, Job worshipped. Perhaps it was the timing which meant that Job could see the hand of God at work. Perhaps it was his deep and sincere faith which meant he understood that God is in control. And as Job said at the end there, naked I came into the world and naked I depart. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Job understood God, friends. But let me read you his response again. It was that he got up, he tore his robe, he shaved his head, and then he fell to the ground in worship. So the words come after his actions. If you like, they came after thinking time. Because surely it took a few minutes to shave your head. And Job has had enough thinking time to then say what he said, to process enough of that calamity. But I wonder how you would react if even something remotely like this were to happen to you. Okay, you might not be super rich. It's unlikely you have as many as 10 children, although you might be. You might not own 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, let alone the rest, but you might have a friend or a relative or a child who died young. You might have stuff that's stolen. You might have a car crash that's not your fault. You might, and this comes in chapter 2, you might get some disease for yourself. And how would you respond then? Would you rail at God? Would you say, God, this isn't fair. It's not my fault. Why are you doing this to me? Or would you say, God, okay, everything I have is yours. I live to serve you, and I'll worship you. In chapter 2, we have another round of Satan turning up and talking to God, and Satan being allowed to oppress Job with sores, boils, if you like, on his skin. And somewhere in all this, Job's wife is still around. And she says to him after he's got these swords, she says, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." That's her challenge to him. But actually, he maintains his integrity. He continues to worship God. He doesn't curse, he worships. Put that starkly, I think we would all choose to go for worshipping of God. But realistically, we often end up wanting to find reason, wanting to declare that something's happened here. And actually, there are no reasons. In chapter 2, we see that Satan, God says, God talks to Satan about Job, and he says this to Satan, that Job still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. So there is a sense in which what's going on here is, as it were, that sometimes there are no reasons. There seems to be no cause and effect at work. There is no sense of sin with bad consequences. It's just there's bad things that happen. And that's part of the mystery of this world that we live in. Now, a few people have raised that question of Satan. What on earth is going on there with Satan? What is he doing, presenting himself before God along with the angels? Why isn't he just burnt up by the holy presence of God? And clearly we're a long way from the folk image, if you like, of Satan stoking the fires of hell. Notice, though, that he can only be in one place at once. So he goes to and fro throughout the earth. Notice that he can only act with God's permission. Again, it's a very different viewpoint from that image that we often have of God and Satan being sort of equal and opposite powers. It's not that at all. God is clearly in control. God gives permission for what we might well call evil things to happen. And that's part of the mystery of God, friends. We don't understand what's going on. Clearly, Job got it, that all his wealth, all his relations, all his status, all his power counted for nothing, since eventually he would die. But he did fret over the spiritual state of things. He fretted over the spiritual state of his children. Job also clearly got it that his wealth were gifts from God. So, summary so far, Job lived in right relationship with God. He also lived with a right understanding of God as provider, and in this case, remover of that provision. And in that adversity, on account of that right living, Job mourned. He tore his robe, he shaved his head, and then he worshipped. And I think the key thing is worship. We can do a long study if we wanted to, but I'm not going to today, in terms of how this compares with the temptations of Jesus and the way that Jesus said, rebuked Satan by saying, actually, you shall worship the Lord your God and him only. And that's the one thing that Satan doesn't do. He doesn't worship God. So, coming back to Job, I think that he really deep in his being got it, that the only thing that matters is the state of his soul. And then for him, the state of his children's souls. Thus it is that Job knows he has done no wrong, that he's clear that he's treated others honorably and without deviousness. Just read on in the book, because in the end, he lived to grow his soul's relationship with God, and that totally affected for the best his relationships with people. Now, the intention of this summer sermon series is that we look at the preacher's favorite song. And we're going to hear mine in a few minutes. It's a song I came across soon after I was ordained, so I became a priest, and it's stuck with me through the years. Effectively, it's a declaration of a willingness to trust and to worship God whatever happens, which I guess is best illustrated by what happened to Job. And that's partly why we're here today. And actually, at heart, what matters, what is of eternal worth, is our state of our relationship with Jesus. It's not whether we're friends with the world or in good health. And the song that we're going to hear is a song that has carried me through huge difficulties over the years, whether it's parents dying, children moving out, whether it's ill health, whether it's changed expectations of outcomes for individuals in the family, and so on and so on. And the challenge for us all, I think, is to worship, live our lives in true worship of Jesus, the one and only God who gives and takes away, the one who knows our past, who knows our future, the one with whom we will live forever, if indeed we've accepted that offer of forgiveness and fresh start. And if you haven't, friends, if you haven't, then today's as good a day as any to say yes to God, say yes to his forgiveness, say yes to his offer of salvation, of new life in Jesus. So that chapter passage ends with Job got up and tore his robe, he shaved his head, he fell to the ground and worshipped. The name of the Lord be praised. Now we're going to hear that song, but we're going to challenge you to do something while the song's happening. So Esther is going to introduce us to that.